All right. Well, guys, well, looks like we got a good audience in with us today. I thank you guys so much for joining us. As you know, we're continuing our speaker series. We're happy to join you as we kind of wrapping up our spring semester. And then you guys know we'll talk at the end about what we have in store for you over the summer. And also we will have a fall series as well. So thank you so much. We're building a little community, a little family here. Tonight, we have a wonderful topic for you. So just sit back, relax. This is going to be a really fun session. As always, we want your engagement. We want your questions. I want you to challenge these three wonderful guests, challenge the crap out of them tonight. And let's have some fun on the insider tips around the career. So each of the panelists is going to introduce themselves, explain a little bit about their background, their STEM path, even their tie to LSAMP, and a little bit of what they do, so you can kind of get some questions in your head. And the focus today is like the insider things, the things that they would only have known if they had the experiences that they've had in their career. So it's a little retrospect for them to look back and say, man, if I knew this at the beginning, this is something that I would have done. So I'm gonna go ahead and get started. And Dr. Fuentes, why don't you go ahead and start it off, and then we'll transition to Paul, and then Adrian, you'll finish off on the introductions there.
Thank you, Brian. So I'm Dr. Natalie Fuentes. I was a LSAMP, part of the LSAMP program at Iowa State University. So I have a bachelor's in biochemistry from there. Also, I did a minor in linguistics. During my time at Iowa State, I did a lot of research. I ended up doing internships at Harvard, Penn State. I even went to Brazil for one summer. So I have a lot of experience there as well. I decided to actually join the biomedical sciences program at Penn State University. That was a PhD program. I graduated, I think was 2019, time flies. So since then, people call me doctor. Don't worry about that. I'm still Natalie. I'm still not used to that thing. So I'm currently a postdoctoral fellow here at NIH. A little bit about my project, I studied the lung. So we know that because of COVID, the lung is very popular now. I don't study COVID, I study asthma. So basically, before puberty, boys are more prevalent to develop asthma than girls. After puberty, this completely changes, and females, women actually, become more prevalent to develop asthma than males. So basically what I study is what happens or what causes that shift. So part of my hypothesis is that hormones actually affect this change. So I was able to study estrogen, testosterone, progesterone, and all of that during my graduate schoolwork. And now as a postdoc, I'm more at the molecular level. So I study airway smooth muscle of the lung and also epithelial cells. So I'm an expert in lung function. And because of that, because I'm here, I want to talk to you about how to get a job in industry or even in the government, since I'm working for the government now. So if you guys have any questions about that, I'm more than happy to answer them. Something very important that I want to share, I will be moving forward from this postdoc position. So I will be joining the biopharmaceutical industry this Monday. I just went through the process. I was able to get more than 4 offers at the same time and to negotiate, which is very important, the negotiation part of it. So yeah, I will be more than happy to answer any questions you guys have about that.
Awesome, awesome. Paul, thank you, Dr. Fuentes.
So next time, I think I want to go before Natalie because I can't top her at all. But Paul Faronbi, background's in chemical engineering. I'm also attended Iowa State University, so I've known Natalie now for, wow, almost like 8 years, I think.
You guys have no idea.
For a long time. So background in chemical engineering, been a part of INSPIRE LSAMP since my sophomore year of college. Did undergraduate research all 4 years, but with my background in engineering, I wanted to do some industry stuff as well. So while I was in college, I also did a co-op at Cargill, so took a semester off. Worked for 7 months at Cargill in Wichita, Kansas. And I also did an internship with Nestle USA in Jonesboro, Arkansas. So if you ever had Stouffer's or Lean Cuisine, that was a factory I was in, the Stouffer's lasagna, Lean Cuisine, paninis, things like that. It smelled amazing, but I couldn't eat a lot of it. Well, I couldn't really eat any of it because we had to sell it, obviously. But after I graduated, I accepted a full-time offer to General Mills, so moved out to Albuquerque, New Mexico. First time in the Southwest. It was a really good experience making granola bars. So the line I was on was a crunchy Nutri-Valley granola bars. If you ever had them, you know that they fall apart and they break pretty easily. I was in charge of packaging, so I probably hated the fact that they fell apart more than you did because it's pretty hard to package. So I was in that department for about a year, and I worked in the cereal department for 3 to 4 months, and then overall helped out with some reliability stuff. And then I full circle came back to the bars department over crunchy and chewy granola bars as a team leader. And then fast forward from General Mills, moved to Nestle Purina, where I am currently. Was originally a continuous improvement role. Now I'm on the mechanical packaging side. So what does that mean? I'm helping out with the equipment has to do with packaging. So you think Purina, you think dog food and cat food. So I'm more so on what we call the dry food. So a lot of the dry cat food and dog food. So think of your Purina One or Beneful, dog chow, cat chow, all the stuff that's to do with the packaging, which is a lot more than you would realize. That's what I'm in charge of. And then my position specifically is helping out a lot of capital projects. So pet food is continuing to expand. And so exciting news that Purina has announced 2 new factories, one in Eden, North Carolina, another one in Batavia, Ohio, which I'm a part of the project. I'm leading the acquisition of the equipment and all the stuff that goes with that. So anything that has to do with engineering or as far as transitioning to different roles or even from research to industry, I can definitely help answer questions. And shout out to LSAMP alumni group. I have that as my background. So yeah, so we've been doing a lot of stuff in the last several months, and definitely can talk more about that as well.
Cool. Now, go ahead.
Nope. On you, Adrian.
I was gonna say, Paul, for going second, you did a pretty fantastic job, and it's crazy because you and Dr. Fuentes, like you can tell, like your excitement and your passion, like right off the gates. So for everybody, my name's Adrian Saenz. I'm a little bit further south, so I did both my undergrad and my graduate at Oklahoma State University. I started with civil engineering for my undergrad. I started doing research around the end of my sophomore year as I was exposed to more and more different programs on campus. A lot of my research projects early on were kind of just like projects that were just kind of like created for me because like my department was rather small and there wasn't a lot of professors within the field of water that were doing a lot of research. So it took off really as like different opportunities, but it took off. So thanks to OK-LSAMP, I was able to do 2 research experience for undergrads in Colorado, one at Golden and one at the University of Colorado at Boulder. So 2 pretty fantastic spots. I finished my undergrad in civil engineering in May 2016. And it was also that semester that we had I think it was air pollution professional come to class. And he pretty much told us that for civil engineers with an environmental option, you really have 2 roles. You either, one, work for companies to help them pollute the environment to the maximum extent of the law, or you work for the government to help prevent those companies from further polluting the environment. So with that description, I knew that it wasn't quite what I wanted. So I took a completely different track. And for my master's, I pursued biosystems engineering. I started working on investigating switchgrass and the water and soil concerns that would come with it being a potential biofuel feedstock option for the state of Oklahoma. From there, I was introduced to the Army Corps of Engineers towards my last semester. So while I was defending, I applied. And actually the day that I defended my thesis, I got a call, and that's whenever I was offered a position with the Army Corps of Engineers here in Omaha. So currently I am a civil engineer with the emphasis in hydraulics. And what that pretty much means is that I'm a water modeler. So I work with a lot of data to feed it into hydrologic models to allow us to forecast events, to allow us to determine the amount of inundation that happens in an area and really help protect the people within different cities. So that's what I do currently. And I was awarded a Fulbright to go pursue research opportunities in Panama, but because of COVID, that was cut short. But it was actually pretty fantastic because it set in motion the ability to cross-train within various sections within the water engineering branch. And now I'm beginning to explore more and seeing how we're all interconnected. So it's been a pretty fantastic journey.
So to sum it up, these are just like really, really, really smart people. No, in all seriousness, guys, thank you for the career paths you've chosen. Thank you for the endurance that you've shown. And I'm looking forward to kind of digging a little deep in there tonight and seeing what things you've learned that you wish you would have known and that can benefit our students that are coming behind you now. So let's go ahead and get started with that. And Adrian, I would like to have you start off with telling us, one thing that was shocking to you about, starting your career, that when you were in school and you were like, oh, I may choose this path, I may choose that path, or hey, this is what it may be like to get up and actually go to work every day and not just be studying every day. What is one thing that's like, wow, that's not the way I was expecting this to be, in the positive or the negative sense, but maybe one of each,
I will say that in the positive sense. So whenever I started with the Army Corps, there was a fellow coworker of mine that was around my same age, and she had only completed her bachelor's, but she was above me on the totem pole because of the fact that like several programs, at least with the government, have pathways programs that would allow students to work for them full time or work for them over the summer. So it's a summertime employment, but with the idea for them to continue to work with the Corps. So by her being involved with the Corps during her undergrad and kind of having idea that like this was a resource that was out there for her and this was a path that she could take, she took advantage of that pathways. And upon graduation, she had a career. And then upon the completion of that pathway, she was able to jump to the government scale of 11 versus me that went to my undergrad and then decided to do a master's and then decided to apply for a job. I was actually hired on as a 7, but because of my master's was bumped up to a 9. But considering that, it was by taking advantage of those programs, she was able to be one step ahead of me, even though we're about the same age. So that was something that was superbly interesting to me in the sense that if you happen to be one of those rare individuals that have a concrete idea of like what you want to do and what companies fall within that area, like what are the programs that they offer to help recruit the next generation of students, so that whenever it comes to employment, you're one step ahead. And whenever it comes to like where you are on the corporate ladder, you're one step taller. And then now in terms of the negative, so I had chose civil engineering because it had an environmental option. And whenever I had chose my career, I thought back to the Dawn soap commercial where it was a BP oil spill in the Gulf and there were scientists that were helping clean the wildlife. And I specifically remember penguins. And so whenever I saw that commercial as a kid, I said, that's what I want to do. And so I searched the different types and engineering was an option. And I searched all the different descriptions and environmental engineering was perfect. I didn't want to go too far. So there's an environmental engineering option here at Oklahoma State University. And it felt as though everything was coming into place. And as I took the curriculum and I was exposed to more water resources courses, there were a lot of drinking water and wastewater treatment plant, but I kept believing like, no, there's gonna come an opportunity for me to find something that's more environmentally conscious and focused on water, that it'll be perfect for me. And that's where that professional that came to present during my last semester of my undergrad, and he pretty much told me that in this specific degree, like these are your only two options, that was devastating to me because I really wanted to do something more. And the description made sense, at least for that field. But the good news is that that prompted me to switch teams and go to a different type of engineering and be able to find the path that I wanted to pursue more.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you for that. Dr. Fuentes, what is something that was a surprise to you in a good or a bad way when you started your career, that you didn't really think about or know about as you were going through your education path?
That's a good question. I mean, I think the importance of networking. It is key. It is just key. And, you know, like during your undergraduate experience, you don't realize that. However, when you join a graduate program or when you start to, you know, like search for that dream job, you see the importance or notice the importance of networking. I want to congratulate all the students that are actually here tonight, because that actually shows that they are in the right path, right? They are here to connect with each other. They are here to network. So I don't know if you guys know about LinkedIn. I know that our LinkedIn pages were on the first slide. For example, as I mentioned, I'm moving forward with my career next week, starting my new position. The way that I got most of my interviews were through LinkedIn. I didn't move a finger. I just received messages from recruiters. And that was because my LinkedIn profile was very, you know, like I make sure it was on point. So I suggest you guys to go there, get your profile ready to go. And as soon as you guys are ready to start, you know, like trying to find that new job or even for graduate school applications, put that everywhere. Add your LinkedIn link, I should say, to your resume, to your graduate school applications. I do know that for the graduate school application, even for med school, they ask for your website. Use your LinkedIn as your website. It is just amazing. So I would say something that actually surprised me was how important networking was to a certain extent. If you know people in industry, in academia, you reach out to that person. Hi, you know, it's Natalie. I met you a couple months ago in this conference. I was looking through your profile and I noticed that you work on this. I have an interest for that as well. How can we work together? You know, like stuff like that. And now that I'm in a, you know, like I have a PhD, so I'm in a higher position as, you know, like when you compare me when I was a graduate student or an undergraduate student, we love to receive those messages. You know, like I love to receive messages from undergraduate students. Like the other day, I got an email from an undergrad student. Oh, Natalie, so I'm planning to apply to this program. I saw that you had that on your resume. And do you have any tips? And I'm like, of course, I love to do that. So just reach out to people, don't be scared, and try to expand your network as much as I can. It will definitely make the difference.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you so much for that feedback. We talked about LinkedIn a lot last year, and I'm happy you reiterated that. You're adding a little more value to a statement that we've been trying to preach here for a long time, that we need to take care of our LinkedIn profiles. It can be a valuable tool for you. So thank you so much. Mr. Paul, same question for you. Something that surprised you early on or even now that you had no clue about when you were going through your education?
Yeah, for sure. I'll echo what Natalie just said. Congratulate all you guys for being on here and taking away the first steps in networking. Natalie said it, and she loves getting reached out. I would encourage you to reach out to me or Adrian after this. We always say that, and the hidden tip for you is a lot of people don't reach out. So we're just waiting for someone to reach out. You might be the only one that reaches out. But to answer your question, Brian, I think it was how career paths aren't necessarily linear at all. Like you always have, there's, you move to the side or you can move to different industries. And that kind of describes what I've done in my career path, even with networking. So like Natalie said, even the first opportunity I had with the co-op with Cargill was from networking. I didn't really see it that way, but I went to a regional ship conference and I met a cargo representative that went to Iowa State. I talked to him there. And then there was a career fair later in the fall, and I ran into him again. And then after talking to them for several minutes, I found I was going to be having an interview with them. And then that's kind of set up where I am today as far as the first industrial experience. But even as far as I've moved, so I said I was with General Mills for a while, more entry-level position. And then I kind of, so I ended up moving to Nestle Purina, which was more, I wouldn't say mid-level, kind of in between early and mid-level position, more on the continuous improvement side. And then where I'm at now, mechanical packaging, is more like a lateral move, but fortunately I was able to get a bump in pay, but it was more of a lateral move than where I wanted to go long-term with R&D, but really not realizing, I thought it was just, it's this step and that step and next step, and then I'm where I want to be, CEO of the company, whatever it is. But it really doesn't look like that. And I've seen that several times, and I've been told that several times, but actually being in the industry and seeing how it works, a lot of times it is those lateral moves and networking. Can't say enough how crucial that is, especially even when you're already in a company. I think it's even more important that you're talking to those higher ups, letting them know what you're interested in, because that's actually how I got this position I'm in right now. I didn't even interview for it. So that's just the power of networking.
Awesome, Paul. You know, this got two networking topics that have already come up here in such a short period of time. You know, I think our students, we talk a lot about networking, right? Last summer, we had these different discussions. From an insider tip standpoint, let's transition here with that. Is there something that's very unique about networking now that you're in your field that you think a student can, you know, implement now? Is there something particular about networking, or is there something about networking that you would have done differently with your networking when you were a student? Whoever's excited about that one. It looks like, oh, Adrian, you're ready, man.
Yeah, I think the first thing that came to mind with that one, after some thoughts, is that throughout my 5 years as an undergrad and 2.5 years as a master's, like I've met a variety of different people. But one of the things that I wish I would have done better is just like my repetitiveness, in the sense of like reaching back to the people that I met before in order to like see what's available and like what opportunities are out there. Because like once you make that connection, it stays a connection as long as there's energy to like continue to communicate. But the moment that communication stops, then that connection is severed. So it's very important that even if it's like, hey, we met 2 years ago, what are things like, what are you doing now? And just like focusing the attention around them and what they're up to, that still counts. And that still kind of allows you to be remembered. And then being remembered is something that gives you a heads up.
Mm-hmm. And I have two other things to add. First, you guys are here, right? As I mentioned before, and as we all can see, your colleague is gonna be the person next to you. So something that we sometimes forget is that the fellow student in class is gonna be your future colleague. So the best way to start your networking is with your classmates, as easy as that. That's the best way. Like right now, as Paul mentioned, we know each other for like 8 years. We never lost, you know, like contact or communication. So that's an excellent example of how to develop a relationship and how to actually expand your networking. Just start with your fellow classmate. The second thing, in order to keep up the communication with my network, what I do, I send one email at least per year, saying, for example, Merry Christmas, how are you doing? So this is a little summary of what I did this past year, what I'm working on, and this is what I'm hoping to do in the near future. So like this, that just, I don't know, sparks that relationship. So select a holiday or something, a special day for you, and sit down that day and just email your list of network, which is actually pretty great. It actually worked for me a lot. So that's just an easy way to keep that spark going at least once, every couple months or per year.
Yeah, I think it's really key, like Adrian and Natalie just mentioned, that to keep that network in place, like if it kind of falls off for a couple of years, don't be afraid to reach back out if you remember them, maybe something pops up. And so I would say, like we talked about it earlier, LinkedIn is great for that. Not only just being on LinkedIn, but actively posting and commenting on LinkedIn. So I think there's always I think Brian calls it the silent assassins out there, that there's people out there on the timeline, but they're not commenting, they're not posting, they're just kind of observing. I think it's really, I've seen a few times it's powerful when you share something you did. Maybe you just got a promotion, or you're doing something volunteering in the community. It doesn't even have to be LinkedIn, maybe it's on Instagram, whatever it is that you're using. But I think it's important to show what you're doing, whether it's in your career or personal life, to stay connected with people that way. I don't know how many different times after I post something about stuff I'm doing for alumni on LinkedIn, or just a post that comes to mind about professional development, and I have people I haven't talked to in a few months or a year reach out and be like, hey, how are you doing? Or so I'll comment on my post, and then from there I reach out. I think that the key thing is to be intentional about it, whether it's initiating that post, or if you see someone commenting and you feel like, oh, I haven't talked to them in a while, you're still connected. It's still an opportunity to reach back around. And I like Natalie's idea of using the holidays. I think that's a perfect example as well.
Awesome. We're going to have a quick pause, because what I'd like to do is just get your interaction before we go into a question. Let me go back to a quick share screen here, and we'll do just a quick question, which actually you guys, hopefully I moved very fast and you didn't see the answer. So just act like you didn't see it, please. So how many STEM jobs went unfilled in 2018? Use the chat feature if you don't see your poll pop up, but you should see one either on your phone or tablet or laptop. Awesome. We got a lot of good answers here. 500,000 is leading the way. 1.2 million is fighting for second place. Looks like, all right. Looks like we ended with first place right now is 1.2 million. Coming in second place is 500,000, 2.4 million, then 250,000. Drum roll, please. 2.4 million jobs. Wow. So this whole conversation today about careers and the fact that you're in the STEM education space now, this is a validation that you're needed. If you ever thought, you're having those difficult days, challenging exams, you're stressing out a little bit and you're like, man, why am I doing this? You're doing this because there's like 2.5 million job openings that are waiting for you, and people they need you. We need you. The country needs you. The world needs you. So I want you to always stay encouraged and don't get too down on yourself. All right. So what I like to do is have someone in the audience. You can use your raise your hand feature. I'll be looking out for you. I would like for you to ask a question either to the entire panel or to a particular panel member. Use the raise your hand feature if you would like to ask a question. And it looks like there's someone that raised their hand and I'm on the wrong section. All right, Alan, unmute yourself.
Hey, you guys, thank you so much. Just wanted to say for reaching out and like presenting a little bit. My question's kind of dealing with post graduation. So like right now as an undergrad, I've just been really trying to hunt down any internship that would accept me, any scholarship, any research assistant, whatever I can get my hands on. But nothing is really specific to my major yet. Once I graduate, would it be okay to be like more specific about I want a job in my major? I don't know if it's just like try to take whatever opportunity I can get to push myself forward, or more be a little bit specific and say, hey, I'm majoring in electrical engineering, so trying to find a job specifically catered towards that.
I can start that one. When it comes, I think when it comes down to it, if you're getting to a point where you haven't necessarily identified like an exact fit, I would say take an opportunity that arises, and maybe that'll broaden your perception and your horizon, and maybe you'll uncover some aspect of the job that wasn't written in the job description that you really love. So for me, I came in within the hydrology section, but within the whole engineering section in general, there's a river engineering section that does a lot more surveys. They do a lot more in the field activities. And then that would actually be the position that I would want more, but I was only really exposed to it by taking an opportunity and seeing what was out there within that company. And I was surprised to find that there was another area that I wanted more. Just the thing that I would say is that if you do take that approach in the sense of within your mindset that you're going to take this opportunity and then you're going to use it as a bouncing off platform, make sure that you don't necessarily express that through the hiring application. You kind of reserve that to yourself, knowing that, okay, like this position is going to allow me to see what's out there. Because if you express that with the people who are trying to hire you, they're going to hold it against you, because they're going to view you as someone who's not going to stick around, and they're less likely to hire you because it takes money to hire on a new person, and they don't want to have like an empty spot at the end of the year. It's not to say that it doesn't happen, but they do try to safeguard against that. So just be sure on how like you present yourself.
Totally agree with that, Adrian. I can definitely speak to when I was going through the process, I learned some things not to do. I made a lot of mistakes as I was applying. So first off, quick story. I told you I interned with Nestle. At the end of the internship, I was supposed to be offered full-time. But at the end of it, they restructured it, so I didn't get a full-time offer. So I was scrambling, started to look for different positions. And so from there, I went to career fair. This was after the career fair. I only really looked at a few companies. Fortunate enough to get a job offer from Conagra. But at the same time, I knew that wasn't where I wanted to be, because I wanted to work for a company that was more global. So I applied to some other companies. I made the mistake of saying that, hey, I had this offer. They need me to respond the next week. And what did they do? They said, okay, you have an offer. We're going to stop the hiring process right now. And so they basically they stopped it, and they said, okay, we're no longer under consideration. So I'll definitely say, don't do that. Go through the process. Don't tell them that you have other offers on the table, at least not for your first job out of college. I think it's different when you've already had a job and you're more 2 or 3 years out. You can do that, but right after college, they want someone who's dedicated to company, like Adrian said, someone that's going to stick around, not someone who's just looking for anything. At least you don't want to tell them that. So I think the biggest thing is to see what your passions lie. So I think a lot of times what's in our major may not necessarily, because I know you're electrical engineering, which I know from my brother and my dad are electrical engineers. So I know even electrical engineering itself, there's a lot of different stuff you can do that people don't necessarily realize. And I would say focus more on the company than maybe the role at first, because it's really important that the first manager you have or the company you have is there to go to bat for you and really cares about your development. Because in the long run, You want to make sure that you're growing and you're developing. You don't have someone that's going to be a micromanager or a company that you don't really like what they do, but maybe they pay a lot, and maybe you're doing electrical engineering work, but you hate what you're doing. So don't limit yourself by saying, I'm only going to do electrical engineering work. You can always come back to that, but focus more on the fit of the company, I would say.
Awesome, awesome. Do we have another person that would like to ask a question? Oh, perfect. Already hands are up. Alphonse, take your phone off mute.
Computer, technically.
Oh,
Sorry. My question was specifically for the engineers on the panel, or yeah, specifically. Maybe I'm doing mechanical engineering, but I'm specifically looking for roles that are more hands-on, but I'm still unsure, but I was considering doing things like a computer, a technician that works on like manufacturing floors or whatever. But my question was for specifically lifestyle, like managing work life. Do you guys know, or at least have like some type of experience or word of mouth or from anyone else that of whether like there is like flexibility? Sorry, that was a drawn out way of saying, is there a lot of that was a very long-winded way of saying, is there a lot of flexibility in your experience in engineering roles, or is it very variable, or is it almost always a lot of hours, or work-life management? What do you, in your opinion? That's my question.
So, or Adrian, we're gonna go. Go ahead.
I was waiting to see if you went first because I've gone first the last couple of times.
Okay, all right. So I would say for engineers, it really just depends on the industry that you're in. From what you're describing, it seems like you're more geared toward manufacturing. I'll say, and that's where I'm in right now. Actually, my role is, I'm chemical engineering, is really more geared towards mechanical engineering. But I think as far as manufacturing, there is a tendency to be long hours, but at the same time, the work-life balance all really depends on your manager, because I know every company that you talk to, they'll tell you about work-life balance, but that really doesn't mean anything if your manager doesn't believe in it. So when you go into the interview process, there's like some key questions you can ask about, as far as like what are the typical hours or the expectations for time. And a lot of times, if they're honest enough with you, sometimes they'll tell you like, we expect 10-hour days or 11-hour days, or we're really in a crunch period, so this is going to take a lot more time. But I will say it's on you, and really self-care is important. I will always say that, so that if you feel like you're getting burnt out, make sure you're going to get PTO. Make sure you're using PTO. Don't ever lose PTO, or maybe you can sell it and whatever to get money. But I think make sure you're using PTO first of all, but really having that conversation up front when you go into an interview process, understanding it. But really, because you're more entry level, I know like a lot of the stuff in manufacturing, I did work longer hours, but I think that's all part of the learning experience as well. But at the same time, I want to keep that balance so you're not working long hours for like a year or 2 years. But that's my thought on it.
For me, I would say that working with the government is like notorious for like the best work-life balance. So whenever I was hired, I asked about overtime, and they specifically told me it's like very rarely are you ever gonna get overtime. Like with the government, you are a 40-hour a week kind of person. And for me, that was fantastic, because during my experience through my master's, I kept up with my peers, as Paul and Natalie had pointed out, and they went in and they got on the ground and they started running, in the sense that with their companies, with their first couple of years, like they were working And from that, I was able to learn that if I went into the private industry that are more profit driven, like there's a higher possibility of me working longer hours. And if you're an individual that is ready to like make some money and you're okay with that sacrifice, then go for it. More power to you. If you have the opportunity, you have the willpower and you're okay with that, knowing that your returns in the end are going to be greater, i.e. you're going to be making more than a government employee, then that's fantastic. i.e. you're going to have the skill set that's going to allow you to like move up the chain of command. That's fantastic. Like you just have to go into it knowing that sacrifice that you're going to give. But if you're the type of individual that values not having to work more than 40 hours, then I would seek different aspects or different companies that offer that. So like the government hires a lot of mechanical engineers. It just depends on like where you want to like put yourself and what positions you want to do. And with that, like you're gonna have a great work-life balance, because the government, we're bigger contracts, like it's longer periods of time. There's less of a need for someone to like have to carry a high burden. Versus if you consider like a small company is really dependent on their profits, on the work that they're bringing in and their ability to grow. So with like a smaller company, I would anticipate higher workloads because they're trying to grow. They're trying to get money. They're trying to put themselves out there. So if like that opportunity comes along and you're okay with that, then go for it. But it's just really that decision matrix that you have to have for yourself whenever it comes to the companies that are out there. Like, are you okay with this lifestyle? And then furthermore, are you okay with it being 1 year, 2 year, 5 years? And if not, what are you gonna do to like change that?
Man, what great answers and insight. Oddly enough, you walked into my area of expertise when you start talking about engineering and manufacturing. It's where I lived my whole life. And I will tell you that everything these gentlemen just said is absolutely true. You can get what you want out of this. But at the same time, know that if it's the finances, there is going to be a sacrifice of time. And that's okay if that's your choice. So I really like, Adrian, what you said. You laid it out beautifully there. This is about life choices, and don't ever feel afraid. The only thing I can add to what they said was don't be afraid to make that choice based off of your life decisions. Don't try to keep up with what other people are doing, because you may not be willing to sacrifice the same things that someone else is willing to sacrifice. In return, you may get a benefit that they're not able to get as well. So I really love the feedback you guys just gave. And it looks like we have a few more hands coming up here. So I'm going to transition over to Nigel. I saw your hand up next. Nigel, you still there with us?
Yeah, my mute button was acting funny. I came in a little late. I caught the end of Paul said something that I kind of like stuck to. You mentioned that when you picking for your position, make sure you pay attention to the company based on the position versus just picking on any position for any company. And I kind of understand what you're saying, but can you just elaborate on that just a little bit, if possible, or any one of y'all? Honestly, it doesn't really matter.
Yeah, that's a good question. Do you guys, Dr. Fuentes, Paul, Adrian, do you guys understand that question? He's basically saying, Paul had mentioned about not just looking at a title, because things are different company to company, and really understanding when you're interviewing with that particular position at that particular company, what that means in that world, not just what that title could mean across the board.
Yeah, I think that comes with really doing your homework about what the company's values are and what they believe in. What I know every company has and what they're about, what their focus is. usually if you see companies that are more focused on as far as their dollar amount or the sales, you're gonna know that, yeah, they're probably gonna pay you more, but at the same time, they're gonna work you pretty hard. But then on the other side, you see more companies that are focusing more on the people, which is why I fell in love with Purina as far as people and pets and really bringing them together. So I'll tell you right after I got out of college, what I'm doing now, or even the position before, I didn't even know existed. Like as far as continuous improvement, I didn't really know what it was or anything about it. That was something I learned while I was at General Mills. So that's another thing as far as maybe some of the stuff you're doing right now. There might be some things that you don't know about, or maybe don't even exist. Our world is going really fast that you may be interested in long term. I think it's more critical because the jobs right after college, specifically for engineers, are going to either be like a project engineering role, which you're just working a bunch of projects, or you're doing maybe process engineering on the line, or sometimes they'll have you do team leading. But they're more general roles that you might be able to interact with a lot of other people in the business, which I think is critical that you take advantage of that and don't only do your role, talk to other people at the plant in the office about what they're doing. Purposely set up informal interviews to introduce yourself, and that's another way to network, and then understand what their roles are, because that might be something you want to do in the future as well. So that's my thought on it.
Awesome, awesome. Dr. Fuentes, have you seen the similar thing in your world where you can have the same title, but it actually means something different as you were looking at, I know you just went through interviewing and had all these offers. Is that something similar in your world?
Yeah, so for PhD or, like a hardcore scientist position, I would say what I have seen lately, since I just went through the process, is that each company is a whole different world. And there are several things that you guys have to look for. Of course, benefits, including salary, work hours, how the team dynamic is. And you get a sense of that while you are interviewing. Now things are even worse because everything is through a computer because of COVID. I think before, people were actually able to go on site and actually do the tour and meet people one-on-one, which I think give you a better sense of how the team dynamic actually work. For me, in my case, my experience, I spent 2-3 full days just talking to people via Zoom. And even though you try to get that sense, sometimes it's like difficult. So you need to be able, as Paul mentioned, to actually make the right questions. So that's something very important. So at the end, I had the opportunity to compare interviewing with the government versus interviewing with a smaller company, and also interviewing with a mega biopharmaceutical company. So I had a glance of the three of them. And what I noticed is that, as Adrian mentioned, for the smaller company, they expect you to go there and run. They wanted people, experts in their field, in whatever, like requirements they had. And also I noticed that they look to move people forward faster. So if you want to go up the ladder fast, you can go to a smaller company, but you're going to have more work, and the salary might be competitive, but it's not going to be in the high end of the spectrum. For biopharmaceutical companies, for the big ones, I should say, what I noticed is that they are looking for very specific people. For example, my position, the name of my position is Respiratory Microbiome Scientist. So it's not just scientists, it's respiratory microbiome scientists. So they want me there exactly to develop preclinical models of asthma, as simple as that. If I compare that to the position at the smaller company, the name of the position was scientist. So what do you mean by that? There were several aspects. So they want me to be in charge of several things at the same time. And you notice that just by the title, it's like very easy to scoop. So I think, yeah, there is a lot of things that you guys need to look forward to and ask the right question. Just have your list ready to go. And when you talk to each person, something that I used to give a sense of how things were, I asked the same questions to some people. So I compared the answer they gave to see if they were like similar to each other, since it was just like a Zoom meeting, one-on-one type of thing. That also helped me to compare, oh, this person said this, but this person actually had another answer for that, which, you know, like it might be able to compare easier. So yeah, they're very different.
Awesome, great question and great responses. Let's go with Miss Brittany.
Awesome. Hi guys, great to meet you all. So this opportunity, I'm a sophomore in undergrad. I'm going to be doing research and I'm pretty anxious to, I haven't done research. I haven't even thought about research. So my question to you is, how did you guys prepare in the first place before starting the research? And also, how did you guys maximize your efficiency during that time? I'm done.
So Brittany, I think that's a great question. Can you tell me what field or what your research is about, like the field, chemistry, biology, engineering?
So yeah, it's going to be biology. I'm going to be studying about cancerous cells.
Okay.
So I'm going to be looking at a tumor and we're going to be looking over like the DNA, the mRNA and everything like that. So I'm pretty excited, but I'm also pretty scared.
So that's great. First, congratulations. I have been there a couple times. So I think my advice to you will be to just read in advance. Remember, your PI knows that you're still not an expert in the field. So they will teach you. They will teach you. You will have support in the lab. They are very patient. So I'm telling you, just don't be scared. Try to prepare just by reading their papers, the papers from that lab specifically. That helped you a lot. Something that I did, I had like this notebook with definitions. So just, for example, define cancer, and I had the definition written down there. So that's a good way to kind of start learning the different concepts, and just ask questions. When you are in lab, ask. If you don't know something, don't try to like figure it out, just ask. And people usually are very willing to help you develop those skills.
So I will say another good way to kind of like prepare is that accept the fact that you're gonna make mistakes and you're gonna mess up, but that's not gonna be the end of the world. A lot of the times, like your personality, your motivation, your desire to want to learn is what's really gonna like help you and like allow you to become better and like show others that like you mean that, like you want to learn. So whenever I had my first annual review, like they complimented like my personality, my attendance, my appearance, like my willingness to take on new roles. And like that was fantastic, because I, as a new employee, like I didn't have a lot to offer, but the things that I could offer, like as myself and in my ability to be there and to want to learn, that helped me out so much that that's definitely a skill that you should consider using to like give yourself the edge and to allow yourself to like grow, because that's really what it's all about, is the opportunity for you to recognize like, hey, this is something that I don't know, but I'm interested in learning. I'm gonna mess up, and with that, like I'm gonna be able to grow from. And that's just that way of thinking helps you so much. Like positivity is fantastic.
Yeah, I definitely agree with Adrian. I think having that growth mindset is critical, especially you said this is your first research experience, and I'm sure they know that. And I think it's important that you're honest, and like Natalie said, you're asking questions, because really asking questions, like a lot of times you're like, oh, we're gonna ask a dumb question, but really don't. We all hear this, but the dumbest questions are the ones that you don't ask. So always ask questions. If you're not sure, you just want to clarify something. In addition to that, I would this is something I started doing in undergrad, is always carry around a notebook with me. Like now he said for different definitions, but just to take notes on different things. People will say, oh, there's a lot of different acronyms flying around, or people will say some things, or even when I'm having a conversation with someone or taking notes, and then you can call it out and just say, hey, I just want to make sure I don't forget this, and you're writing it down. Like people don't get offended by that. Actually, a couple of times I've been complimented by the fact that I am taking notes, and it helped me remember, and I could go back, refer back to something someone said for the previous day or something about the project. I think those key things about having a growth mindset and asking questions and really taking notes is what will really set you up for a successful undergraduate experience. And congratulations on your offer, and I know you're going to do great.
Okay, thank you all. I really appreciate these tips because like coming in, it is kind of scary. But knowing that you guys already done it and how you guys are giving me feedback is really helping me out a lot. So I really appreciate it.
Awesome, awesome. We got wonderful hands up. Let's go, Miss Brittany. Matita, sorry. Matita, you're next.
Oh, hello, hi. So I think we all know that Black and Latinx individuals make up a small percentage of, scientists and engineers. And I wanted to ask, have any of you guys dealt with microaggressions or racism in your workplaces? And if so, can you give an example of how you dealt with it? And if not, if you do, if it does occur in the future, how do you think you'll approach it? I know it's a loaded question.
No, I think it's a great question, and it happens often. It happens very often. I would say since, bachelor's degree to PhD, and now as a postdoc, and I'm pretty sure I will experience more of that in the near future as well. So an example, one time when I just transferred from Puerto Rico, because I'm originally from there, so I speak Spanish, it was very difficult to learn English, to adapt to the language. It was just a very stressful experience. So I was giving this presentation, and actually it was to minority fellow students. So I'm not talking about like overall general classmates. It was actually minority students. And this girl raised her hand and she was like, so what language are you speaking? Is that English? And I was like, literally in front of the class. So that was one experience right there. And the way that I deal with it, very calm. I pretty much kind of ignore her. I address the situation after, because I think those are things that you need to address. I went to the coordinator of that class particularly, and we sit down and we talk, which I think it's very important. So these type of situations will occur. Just, try to be calm, trying to be patient, and just take that to someone that can actually mediate the situation. That's what I would say. So yeah, it will happen. It will happen.
Yeah, I have one that happened while I was at General Mills. It's not why I left General Mills, but it was funny in the moment, but then sad and then funny after. So I'll say it real quick. So I had an opportunity to meet with the plant manager. Started in the position. After a few months, she wanted to talk and see how things were going, make sure I was getting acclimated to the company and living in Albuquerque. And so she asked how things are going, how are you adjusting? I said, everything is good. And then she pressed a little bit further. It's like, really, how are things going? Are you feeling comfortable? And I was like, no, I feel fine. Like, why would I be comfortable? And then she took it one step further to say, well, I'm just asking because I want to make sure, because I know if you are in Covington, so Covington is our factory that's right outside Atlanta, Georgia. Lots of Black people there. So she's like, if you're in Covington, I'm sure you wouldn't be feeling this way. You'd be more comfortable. So yeah. So she was like, to her point, she was trying to make sure that I didn't feel out of place, but she kind of wasn't listening to what I was saying, how I was feeling. I mean, for being in Albuquerque, New Mexico, there's a lot of minorities, more so on the Hispanic side and Black people, but it's majority minority in Albuquerque, so it's a unique situation there. So that was a funny situation, but it was sad later because I didn't take the opportunity to get back with her later to tell her how that made me feel and how that wasn't right. So she didn't have the opportunity to learn from it. I had an opportunity to talk to like my immediate manager, some other people about it, but I never got to circle back with her, which what I'm learning, and Natalie just said is key, is that a lot of times these microaggressions happen and the people that are doing it don't realize what they're doing, and maybe they haven't been interacting with people like that, or maybe they have been, but people aren't been told them that this isn't right or you shouldn't be doing this. So it was sad for me because I didn't have the opportunity to circle back and make a difference in that sense. But I think anytime those things happen, I think it's more so you focus on your internal, what you can control. Like you can't control what happens to you. You can only control how you respond to it. No matter what it is, all you can control is your response. So I think it's really key that you're constantly working on your personal growth as far as your demeanor and your facial expression, all of that stuff, because that stuff will happen. I think just in the world we live in as minorities, the guarantee that will happen. But I think, as Natalie said, it's whoever we're talking to follow up afterwards, I think is the key. It's something I learned from that experience.
So with me and working with the government, I will say that as part of being a government employee, you're expected to do annual trainings. And every year I relearn about all the different types of discrimination. And so what I will say is that working with the government, I haven't necessarily experienced microaggressions, but I have noticed that me being there, or me sometimes being in a location, puts people on their toes because everybody is afraid of discriminating or making or doing something to make me uncomfortable, right? So everybody is concerned about. I mean, nobody wants to discriminate against another person. So like they're on edge and they're on kind of like glass to try not to do that. So I think whenever it comes to that, like having those discussions and the conversations is something that's very critical for like our communities to do, especially to bring to light different scenarios that put us at a disadvantage or make us uncomfortable. But at the same time, like I think having dialogue and like communicating opinions and being able to have conversations is truly the step forward. And unfortunately, it's another thing that falls on us again to be able to like make those first steps, because if it's never addressed, or if these conversations never happen, then they're never going to get resolved. So it's just another thing that we have to do, and we shouldn't necessarily be afraid of having those conversations. But at the same time, we have to make the mental note of like which individuals are worth your time, because you're going to come across individuals that you can have a conversation and you can feel as though you made headway, but then they don't necessarily change. And it's at that point that you have to realize that this isn't really worth my energy, and you kind of just have to move on for the sake of you and not necessarily for the sake of them.
Wow, what great feedback on a very difficult subject matter there. You guys were honest, and I'm really appreciative of the question and the transparency that you showed in those answers. It is a real issue. We can't hide from that. We can't run from that. But one piece of advice that I'll say in this is never allow any of that to impact your professionalism and your reputation. It's easy. It's so easy to feel like you got to react. You got to put someone in their place. That's not always the way you should handle it, right? And so just knowing how to manage through that is critical. And that's why having mentors and having people like our wonderful panelists to talk to, know that you're not alone in that situation. People are going through it or have gone through it and can give you advice. So it's really critical not to feel like there's no one to go to, because you have all of us to reach out to. Great question, great answers. Alphonse? Or did
Yeah.
Alphonse, did you ask the question earlier?
Yeah, I did. That's why I was just wondering. I was waiting till other people finished.
Yeah, let me see if let's do Harvey first, and then we'll come right back to you, Alphonse.
Oh, hi. Thank you all for being here. It's great hearing all your stories and all of your info. It's very, very nice to hear. But I was gonna ask, so I'm currently a freshman at Lewis, and I got accepted for Puma STEM doing research with my calculus professor. I am a physics major, so it is something that I'm not planning on doing in the future, but it's not something I'm against learning. But I just wanted to ask how I would go about this, especially in the future, because I would love to do this research, and I am doing this research, especially with my professor. Me and her have a very good relationship, but it is also something that I don't necessarily see myself doing because it's not necessarily that much related to my field.
Do you enjoy doing it?
Oh yeah, I love calculus, and a lot of it's going to be linear algebra based, and that is something that I feel like will be very beneficial to know how to use. So yeah.
So I would say, especially as a freshman, really anything is that if you enjoy doing it, don't worry about if it correlates directly to your field. Like, yeah, even when a lot of my experiences that I've had in manufacturing aren't directly related to chemical engineering, but I fell in love with it. Even like the fact that I work for a company that makes pet food. I don't even have a pet, but I enjoy the work that I'm doing. So I don't allow what you've done in your past, in your background, to dictate what you do in your future, because really everything that's brought you up to this point is really the foundation. Especially as a freshman, the world is your oyster. Like, you have 3+ years ahead of you as far as opportunities that you can do. And I would say, if you're enjoying it and you like it, keep doing it. I know with professors and grad students, there's always collaborations with different labs, so that might lead to something else that's more in your field. But don't be afraid of it not directly relating to your field.
And that's great, Harvey, that you got an internship during your freshman year. I mean, that's pretty good. What I would add, I have done research in everything you can think of. I run with every opportunity that was like pretty much in front of me. An example of that, when I went to Iowa State, even though I knew that my expertise was more biology based, I had the opportunity to do research in a inorganic chemistry lab. I did that for a year, and actually, you know what I got out of that? A paper. So that was the only paper that I got during my research experience as an undergrad, and I was able to use that for my graduate school applications. And of course, I ended up not doing that for graduate school, but the fact that I got a paper out actually helped me tons, because I was able to prove that I can actually write, and that I can actually put my research into words and to communicate that. So that's just an example of a research experience that, even though I knew was not my favorite, I was able to take that experience and run with it. And, like, get that paper out was extremely important for my applications. And even as a graduate student, when you go to graduate school, if you don't like what your research is about, still as a graduate student, you can change that when you do your postdoc. So I have one friend, for example, she did a PhD in cancer, and she decided that that was not the area that she wanted to continue on. So as a postdoc, she actually changed to study the heart. So I was like, wow, that's a big change, like from cancer to cardiology. And she was able to do that. So not even as a graduate student, you are forced to stay in one field specifically. You can always move and explore other areas. But for now, congratulations and run with that experience.
Thank you.
Awesome. So we'll do one last question, guys, and we're gonna wrap up tonight. This has been a wonderful session. So Alphonse, you're gonna close us out with questions tonight.
Okay. I don't really want to make it, I really enjoyed this session, and I don't want to make it negative, but I was going to talk about you guys' experience being minorities in your professional career, my question is, in your professional career, do you think being a minority has influenced you in a more positive way or negative way? And like specifically, do you mean, do you think, has it made you like more mature or put you ahead of some of your non-minority friends or colleagues or what? And that's just my question. That's it.
So whenever I hear that question, I kind of go back to like that philosophical question of like, is the glass half empty or is it half full? So whenever it comes down to it, for me, I love being a minority because being a minority came with a ton of opportunities that I personally was able to take advantage of. I personally was able to benefit from, and I personally was able to like propel myself forward with it. Like I like being there's nothing wrong with being a minority. It truly becomes on like how you want to play that card. And this kind of goes to like the previous question as well. It's just like, if you really think about it, like if you want to graduate from college, 1, you had to pay for it, 2, you had to go to class, 3, you had to take the test, and 4, you have to pass. There, like that is really all that is truly required. And like what I love about people, or the people that are most interesting to me, are people who have that drive to like want to be more, to want to do more, to like want to make a change in like their communities. And I found that a lot of the times like minorities are a big percentage of that group because they're not satisfied with the status quo, and like they want to change that. And to me, that's admirable. I love it, and I'm proud to be a part of like that group of individuals that are like helping make that change. So I view being a minority as something completely positive, but it's I just have that mentality of the glass half full.
So that's great what Adrian said, and I would say I'm a very proud Puerto Rican. If I was able to tattoo the flag on my forehead, I would probably do something like that as well. I do think that we have a very strong community. When, for example, I'm here at NIH, so when we know someone is Latino or someone is a minority, we always run, like to that person, we introduce ourselves, and we have that bond and that feeling, which I think other communities don't have. So I think just being part of this support system, it's amazing. Besides that, as Adrian mentioned, there is many fellowships, there are many scholarships, many internships that are made for us, like to help us achieve our dreams and our careers. I took advantage of all of that. Here at NIH, for example, I know there are a couple fellowships just for minorities. And if you are interested in becoming a professor in academia, for example, there are specific grants that you apply for. So, I don't know if you guys are familiar with the R1 or the K Awards or these weird coding grants. So each grant has actually one that is dedicated for minorities. So technically you don't compete with the rest of the people, you just compete with minorities, which is actually amazing. So I think being a minority, yes, sometimes we go through a lot. It can be more difficult, more challenging to the language barriers, as I mentioned before, these sort of things, but our community is just amazing. I mean, if you guys have any questions after this, just send us an email and we will be there. So I'm very proud to be a minority.
I would echo that. Like we talked about the microaggressions, all the different stuff we face, but that's stuff we're going to face whether we're in STEM or really any other field. And I've had nothing but positive experiences being a minority, whether it's LSAMP, which we're all involved in right now. A quick plug for the LSAMP alumni group that Natalie and I are involved in is a really good way to stay plugged in with alumni even after you graduate. We're going to recruit Adrian here right after this, but so we have people from all over the nation, and it's really unique because a lot of times, like I think in LSAMP, we have all these different workshops, opportunities to meet people, but then kind of like what Adrian was saying earlier, we kind of all go our separate ways. So maybe there's that disconnect. So with this group, it's an opportunity to come back together, and it's really centered on students, undergraduate students, whether it's in mentoring, workshops, conferences, a lot of stuff we have coming up. But overall, I would say proud to be a minority, proud to be Black, proud to be a Nigerian American. And I think it's only brought about opportunities for me. And I think a lot of this, like what we've said, is really about your attitude and your mindset is really what's going to set you far. Because you can focus on all the negative stuff, but there's also a lot of positive stuff too. And like I said earlier, you can't control the negative or the positives. You can only control what you focus on. And what you focus on is going to grow. So that is really the important part.
I think there's a saying that like the road in life is long and hard, but in the end, it's only against yourself.
That is true. Great feedback there. We wanted to go through just a few quick takeaways. As we heard through different people's discussions between their degree choice and what they're doing, it's okay to change direction. It's absolutely okay. Be comfortable taking calculated risk and going outside your comfort zone. That's going to be very, very critical on your path to success here. Also, expect to experience a layoff, a furlough, uncertain job security. We've all experienced that over the last year. We've experienced it, or someone in our family or someone you know has gone through this. So everyone experiences this at some point. Like this is going to happen. These are challenging, difficult things that I'm in a management world where I have to make these decisions. So it's very tough. So definitely we're going to have a backbone, basically. Network. Stay connected. Network isn't just, hey, I'm looking for you to give me a handout. It could be advice. It can be a tip, a strategy, support, whatever the case may be. Leverage your network. Here are a few reflection questions. What are your top 3 STEM career options that you've considered? Does your current degree choice align with your career desires? And have you gained any experience thus far in your field of study? If so, what? If not, what is your plan to build on those experiences? And before I make a mistake and forget this, we are going to have a survey at the end. We would love your feedback. Our goal is to continue to build out these discussions and make them better and better for you. We want as much participation in the survey as possible so we can make sure that we're bringing the right subjects and the right topics to you in the future. All right. And we have tomorrow, if you would love to join us, we really hope you would. And we hope that you encourage others to do so as well. We have intellectual property and patent law. Get your ideas protected. So we have wonderful guests. We have a surprise, as you can see here, summer internship. We will be announcing a paid virtual summer internship working with Eaton legal team at this session tomorrow. So this is a real opportunity. So I'm challenging you to call somebody, tell somebody to come and hang out with us tomorrow evening at 5 p.m. Eastern. And then lastly is our setup for the summer. We have session after session, wonderful discussions, dialogue for 10 straight weeks, guys. We are going to be bringing challenging conversations, difficult conversations, inspiring and informational conversations your way. For those that have been with us for a while, last summer was amazing. We've leveraged that into a great to a great fall, and then into a great spring. And then we're bringing it back. So we really hope that you not only join yourself, but spread the word about these wonderful subject matters that we're bringing to you this summer. With that said, I want to say thank you to our 3 panelists today. You did an amazing job. You guys are awesome. And thank you for your endurance and your sacrifices to get where you are in your career. And then I'd like for you to, each of you just very briefly, say one encouraging word for each of our students here. We'll start with you, Adrian.
So there is a I think it was a graduation commencement speech a long time ago that's on YouTube. It's called Wear Sunscreen. And it said that some of the most interesting people I know didn't know what they wanted to do with their lives at the age of 20. And it continues on to say that some of the most interesting people I still know still don't know what they want to do with their lives at the age of 40. So no matter where your road may take you, however you play your cards, you can change that path and like take you to somewhere that you are more like you're happier. So your future is truly in your hands, and it's truly up to you. And I think you're gonna do a great job. And I'm excited to see where you guys go.
Awesome, Dr. Fuentes.
Yeah, so I want to tell you guys, never give up. Stuff will happen, challenges will arise. Just don't give up. Keep fighting for your dreams. Keep the networking up, and just be resilient. As I said, we are here, and we did it, and we come from where you are right now. So it is completely possible, and never give up. That's it. Never give up. Work hard.
Awesome. Mr. Paul.
So I'll say, as we talked about this, all our different experiences, I think what's important to note is that as great as where we are, where we've come in our career, we're still on our journey. I think it's important to realize that rejection is going to happen. I mean, it's just a fact of life. I think the earlier you realize it, the earlier you internalize that, and you're not focusing on the rejection, but focusing on what you can learn from the rejection, the better and easier it'll be for you. So that's something I always say is that, like Natalie already said, with being resilient, but that really comes with understanding that rejection is a part of life. It's not something that you're not a failure. It's just something that happens to you. So really more focus on your goals, the importance of mentorship, getting the right people around you, whether it's friends or family, reaching out to people, networking, like I said, on LinkedIn. Quick plug-in for LinkedIn. When you're sending people invitations, always good to put a note in there as well. Even if it's just to say, hey, I remember you from when you spoke at this, or something key that stuck out to you. That will replay back in their mind, and you will, if there's a lot of people that connected with them, you're going to stick out above everyone else, because not everyone does that. It's been a joy to be here. Pleasure of all the questions you guys have asked, and yeah, go out there and be great.
Awesome. Thank you, everyone. Look forward to seeing you tomorrow night, and get ready for the summer series.